Okay, so, we're here to break down the latest cultural happenings and, well, let's face it, the Drake and Kendrick Lamar thing, it's kind of everywhere right now and, we got to talk about it.
It's definitely gotten a lot of attention. And yeah, it's a big deal. I mean, these two, they've been kind of intertwined in a way for a while now, their careers, their music, and it always seems to spark these huge conversations online and beyond.
Right, and we're not just talking about like a friendly rivalry here, right? There's some real tension there. And to get a better grasp of what's going on, we're going to focus on the fallout from Kendrick's track, Not Like Us.
Oh yeah, that one definitely stirred things up.
Yeah, and we're going to be looking specifically at reactions from someone in Drake's inner circle, Baka Not Nice, and what his perspective might tell us about the bigger picture.
I think that's a really smart angle to take on this whole thing because, we often just hear from the artists themselves or, just like the general public reaction. But getting insights from someone so close to Drake, like Baka, that could offer a much more nuanced understanding of, the dynamics at play.
Exactly. Yeah. So let's just jump right in. What was Baka's initial reaction to this Not Like Us track?
Well, apparently his first instinct was to hit back and hit back hard. It seems like the accusations in the song, they were really personal, and he felt the need to immediately defend himself and, by extension, Drake.
Yeah, and he's also been very vocal about the fact that he believes Kendrick doesn't have any real evidence to back up these claims. He even used the word paperwork when talking about it, as if to say, like, where's the proof?
That's a really interesting point because it raises the question of what constitutes proof in these kinds of situations, right? We're dealing with music and art and expression, but when accusations become very personal, it blurs the lines between, creative license and, potentially damaging claims. We think about it. Where's the line and who decides what's acceptable and what crosses the line?
It's a tricky situation for sure. And what really struck me was that Baka also expressed concern about the impact this was having on their children. Like he was genuinely surprised and upset that people were just accepting these accusations as fact without question.
It's a reminder that these public feuds, they don't just stay in the realm of entertainment. They have real-world consequences. And those consequences can extend to families, friends, everyone in their orbit. Baka's reaction really highlights the human cost of these conflicts.
Absolutely. And this is where things get really interesting. So Baka apparently said that Drake reached out to him personally after hearing about his anger over the song. And Drake's advice was basically to ignore it, all the noise, the online chatter, even going so far as to suggest that a lot of the people commenting might actually be bots.
Wow, that's fascinating. I mean, Drake's response there, it kind of speaks volumes about how these high-profile figures have to navigate the digital world, right? They're constantly bombarded with opinions, judgments, both positive and negative. And in a way suggesting that a lot of it might be coming from bots. It's almost like a defense mechanism, a way to distance yourself from the negativity and protect your own mental space.
And, there's probably some truth to that, right? Not every comment online is from a real engaged person. And even if they are people's opinions, can be so fickle and fleeting.
For sure. It's easy to get caught up in the whirlwind of online reactions, but at the end of the day, a lot of it is just noise. It's about recognizing what truly matters and focusing on that.
Right. And Baka also shared that Drake's overall take on the situation was essentially that, yeah, it's negative, but hey, at least people are still talking about us.
Right.
Which is a very, pragmatic way of looking at it, I guess.
It definitely reflects a certain level of awareness about how the fame game works, right? Like even negative attention can keep you relevant in a way.
Yeah.
It's a cynical perspective, perhaps, but it's also a reality in the world of entertainment.
Yeah, it's like the old saying goes, there's no such thing as bad publicity as long as they spell your name, right? But getting back to Baka for a second, he doesn't seem to buy into any of Kendrick's accusations at all. In fact, he's been pretty blunt about calling them crap, basically saying that the public will eventually see through it all and realize there's no substance to the claims.
Yeah, it seems like he has a lot of faith in people's ability to sort through the noise and come to their own conclusions. He even suggested that making these serious accusations without evidence makes Kendrick look weird.
Yeah, and he didn't stop there. He actually went a step further and directly addressed the public, urging people to demand evidence before believing any of these allegations. It's a pretty strong stance to take.
It really is. He's basically advocating for a more discerning audience, a public that doesn't just blindly accept whatever they read or hear online, but actually questions things, digs deeper, and demands proof. It's a call for critical thinking in a world that's often driven by sensationalism and quick judgments.
And it makes you wonder about the responsibility we all have as consumers of information, right?
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to these very public, very messy situations.
Absolutely. I mean, it's easy to get caught up in the drama and the gossip, but it's important to remember that there are real people involved with real lives and real emotions. And we should approach these situations with a degree of sensitivity and critical thinking.
Totally. Now, there's one more piece of this puzzle that we need to address. And not like us. Kendrick specifically calls out Baka with the line, "Baka got a weird case. Why is he around?" So what exactly is this weird case that he's referring to?
Okay, so that line refers back to an incident in 2014 in Toronto. Baka was arrested and faced charges related to the assault of a woman and also for firearms violations.
Okay, so pretty serious stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And initially, there were even more serious charges related to prostitution and trafficking, but those were ultimately dropped because the woman involved chose not to testify.
So even though those charges were dropped, he was still found guilty on the assault and firearms charges, right?
That's right. He ended up pleading guilty to those charges and served a 6-month prison sentence. So when Kendrick mentions this weird case, he's undoubtedly referencing this specific incident from Baka's past.
It definitely adds another layer of complexity to the situation.
Yeah.
And makes you think about the different perspectives and interpretations at play here.
For sure. It's a reminder that there's often a lot more to these stories than what we see on the surface. And it's important to consider all sides of the story before forming an opinion.
Okay, so to recap, we've got Baka's initial anger at the accusations, his strong desire to respond, and then Drake's intervention advising him to ignore the noise and suggesting that some of it might be artificial. We've also got Baka's firm stance that Kendrick's claims are baseless, his emphasis on the lack of evidence, and of course his past legal troubles, which Kendrick brought up in the song.
It's a lot to unpack, and I think it really highlights the complexities of these public feuds, how personal they can get, and how the online world can amplify those conflicts.
Right, and it goes beyond just these two artists. This whole situation really makes you think about how we engage with public narratives, especially when it comes to celebrity disputes. When personal allegations and past events are thrown into the mix and fueled by online reactions, it becomes really difficult to separate fact from fiction. It makes you wonder how much of what we see and hear is actually true and how much is just speculation or even manipulation.
It's a great point, and it underscores the importance of critical thinking in the digital age. We're bombarded with information from all directions, and it's more important than ever to question what we see and hear, to do our own research and form our own opinions, rather than just blindly accepting whatever's being presented to us.
I couldn't agree more. And that's exactly what we encourage you to do. Think critically, engage with different perspectives, and don't be afraid to challenge the narratives that are being presented to you. And on that note, we're going to leave you with this thought to ponder. As we navigate this increasingly complex and interconnected world, how can we become more discerning consumers of information? How can we avoid falling prey to sensationalism and instead embrace nuance and critical thinking? It's a question worth considering long after this deep dive is over.
I think that's a really powerful message and one that's incredibly relevant to all of us.
Well said. And on that note, thanks for joining us for another deep dive. We'll be back soon with another breakdown of the latest cultural happenings. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and keep those critical thinking caps on.
See you next time.